Hi, I'm Katie Kramer, President and CEO of the Boettcher Foundation. Welcome to Colorado Leadership Stories, where we talk to everyday, courageous leaders who have made transformational impacts in their communities and are building a better state for everyone. You'll hear from leaders and organizations and communities throughout the state as we explore the idea that leadership is an activity that anyone can do. Today, we're honored to welcome Malik Robinson to Colorado Leadership Stories. Malik is the president and CEO of Cleo Parker Robinson Dance, a renowned cultural arts institution in Denver that has been a leader in preserving African American heritage for over 50 years. Growing up immersed in the organization founded by his mother, Malik has dedicated his career to using the arts as a powerful tool for transformation and community building. From leading international tours during times of civil unrest to creating impactful after-school programs for youth, Malik's leadership has left a lasting mark on both Denver and the global arts community. We're excited to hear about his journey, his vision for the future of Cleo Parker Robinson Dance, and what inspires him every day. Welcome, Malik.
Thank you.
Well, we're glad you're here, and I can't wait to dive in, having known you for a long time, and we've kind of grown up together in this business, haven't we? So you're just doing wonderful things, and I can't wait for everyone to hear about your story. So let's start at the beginning. You grew up surrounded by dance, arts, and culture.
Yes.
What was the most meaningful part of being part of Cleo Parker Robinson Dance as a child?
Geez, there were a lot of moments that I draw back on that still sort of live in me today in our inspirations. But it's really all of the people that I think my mother was able to attract to the organization. And because of her spirit and her enthusiasm for the work and passion, it was really like a magnet for drawing sort of like kindred spirits.
Mm-hmm.
So I can just think of many leaders from many different walks of life, like Stokely Carmichael, Maya Angelou, and even in Denver, the studio was the place where a lot of folks just converged.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of growing up in this dynamic atmosphere, it was hard for me to leave. So I really wanted to expand and, spread my wings. And I went to Atlanta and I went to New York. And I remember being in New York after 2 years and thinking, Denver just feels like it has so much more to offer. But it was really this village that I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the performances were just stunning. I would be in the back of the theater with my dad watching performances, and both of us would want them to go so well because it feels like there was just a lot riding on, the success,
Mm-hmm.
So, and I would have a knot in my stomach, but then also I would sort of release it and just let the art overcome me. And so there's just a lot of moments for me growing up in this organization that ultimately drew me to work in the organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there one that stands out to you, Malik, where you were like, this is a moment in time? Anything come to mind?
The one that comes to mind is watching Marcy Freeman. And Marcy was the rehearsal director for the organization for 38 years. She entered the company straight out of East High School.
Wow.
So she didn't have a college education, but she became this wonderful leader. And she became also a muse for many choreographers from around the world. But just watching her perform just would create, just a lot of emotion. And so she would perform this work called Angelitos Negros. And anytime she would perform it, it would send me into tears. And so she might have performed that many times, but I think I was at like the Arvada Center and watching her do her thing. And so that's something, that comes up for me in that way.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, you, like me, I'm blessed with wonderful parents. And I want to talk a little bit more about your mom for a minute. As an inspiration and a person of influence in your life, tell us about your mom.
My mother I used to get a little jealous because if you know Cleo, her spirit is just extremely generous. And she wakes up with this energy that is sort of unbelievable. And so I would just enjoy in that. I would relish in it because she would travel a lot. And I didn't always, get my time with her because if she was working late or rehearsing late, then, I'd be home doing homework and all of those things. And so, I'd get jealous because she was really, they call her Mama Cleo. And so I was like, oh, I'm the only child, but I have to share my mother with all of these folks. And it wasn't all bad because it was like growing up with a lot of brothers and sisters. But, she is, I don't know. Well, I think about the organization. I think about how the organization has evolved, but it's really been based off of who my mom is. And so we know a lot about her dance background, but she's also majored in psychology. So she double majored. And that quality comes out often, right? So if I'm going through something hard during the day, then she's ready to listen. And give advice and all of those things. And I think that's another quality that so many people are drawn to because she really does get that time. And so when I think about growing up in that way, that's my mama, And then when I think about just the influence really that she's had on me, I remember before I came into the role of executive director, and I was just working in the organization. I was development director, grant writer, community liaison. And there was always this question of, well, this is the arts. This is it's not a real business. It's nonprofit. And Cleo she's charismatic and she's an extraordinary choreographer, but what does she really know about business? But she is a keen businesswoman. So watching her build the business, and really it's about the people and that she's been able to bring in and help to further it. And so I think about that for me has been an inspiration in watching the way that she works, the way that she uses, she's a choreographer. And so that's all about bringing people together in some type of vision, some type of harmony to achieve something, right? And so that's really isn't any different from what I do as the leader of the organization. So I think about one thing that I do struggle with is that she brings a lot of joy to the work. And so I try to incorporate that as much as I can because the work can get very serious. And so I have to remind myself that the joy is always important to insert here and there.
We can probably all remember that too.
Right.
Well, and I know this has been a passion it's the whole family, right? A family affair. And your dad too has played an important part in the organization.
Yes, he has.
And so with having a career of his own, right? He's a teacher and NCAA football referee. I didn't realize that.
In the Hall of Fame.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, tell us about your dad.
Yeah. So he was a football, basketball star that came out of Regis High School. And actually, they both grew up only blocks away from the studio. And so, they were married for many, many years, but my dad then went to CSU and played football, was injured, but not so bad that he couldn't go and try out for the San Francisco 49ers. And the 49ers, they said, you know what, I think you're probably good enough to play in the NFL, but just not for us, so maybe you want to go to Dallas. And so 1970, my parents came back to Denver and regrouped and said, am I going to Dallas to try out? And he said, no, I'm going to stay here. It's the same year that my mom got the invitation to start the Model Cities or to lead the Model Cities here in Denver. And that was essentially the genesis of Cleo Parker Robinson Dance. So, but my dad, he became a math teacher for 30 years at Regis, and then he became associate commissioner and then co-commissioner for the Colorado High School Activities Association. So he's done a lot. It was amazing. He passed 3 years ago. Yeah. And at the funeral, we were learning about other boards and committees and things that he was doing that he kind of kept quiet, but he just was, he had a vision. And so he would just pursue it kind of quietly.
I love that. And I think the leadership legacy of your entire family, and it's fun to hear about that, but I want to turn the attention to you in your own leadership story and hear more about that. And so certainly you've had these wonderful parents to be inspired by and learn from, but let's hear about your career path. I think that originally you alluded to it right at the beginning that you were thinking of something else.
Yes.
And so tell us that story about how you ended up doing what you're doing today.
Yeah. So I actually started to follow in my father's footsteps a little bit. So I did some student teaching during college. I did that at Regis. And at one point in time, I was teaching algebra at Cole Middle School. And so I just wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And then I got into construction and I was doing carpentry work and I was building kind of homes from the ground up and doing renovations. My neighbor growing up was a contractor and kind of a one-guy operation. And so, I was doing some apprenticeship work with him. I worked as a teller with Wells Fargo. And so I was thinking that could be a career path. I got my real estate license.
Oh, goodness.
So I started selling real estate. So here was the fork in the road for me, is that I was thinking about, I probably flipped several different homes. And around 2006, there were several things were coming together. We had brought in a new board, and I was going to really pursue this career in real estate. And then, we were looking at some of the changes that were coming. It was like between 2006 and 2008. And I remember going and working to get, so it's a little controversial. I remember going to get a loan, and the loan officer said, "I'm sorry, you were denied." And I said, "Well, my financial picture hasn't changed anything in any way. And, I've already been able to buy several homes. What's changed?" And she said, "Well, I saw that I was listing you as white on your loan applications."
What?
And so I've listed you as black, and it came back as denied. And I said, well, change it back to white. And she's like, "No, it's already in there." So I wasn't able to get a loan after that again. So I was like, well, there's a lot of things that are happening in the studio. And I decided to come back into the organization. And that's when I became the senior director. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awful. It's absolutely awful. And I think that what you've done with Cleo Parker Robinson Dance, it's been about community transformation and social issues too. And so, let's talk about that. How has that showed up in the organization's legacy?
Yeah. And I talk about the organization really emerging out of the Black arts movement and out of the civil rights movement. And even here in Denver, we weren't able to come into the building that we are in the historic Shorter Church without having a lot of folks advocating for us and having a vision for us and seeing that this could be something even bigger and better. One of our founders is Buddy Knoll, and his mother is Rachel B. Knoll. And so she has, been a critical advocate. And so coming out of this really dynamic time where people were segregated, and we experienced a lot of that, Cleo experienced a lot of that here in Denver, she was intent on creating an organization that would bring people together and would honor each other's stories, honor each other's lives, but then also see where we would experience our commonalities. And that is some of the intention that I think that was sort of, part of the DNA, but, one thing might have developed more than another. So when I came into my role, I said, well, I think this is such a strong foundation. Let me just think about the things that we're doing well, and then things that I think that we can continue to cultivate that have been a part of sort of the, it's been innate, but it hasn't been necessarily developed fully. And the advocacy piece for us is one of the pieces that I've been able to help to grow over the past few years. Workforce development is another huge piece that I've been able to operationalize, and that's been really on the back of the work, or the shoulders rather, of my grandfather, who was the technician and theater director for the company for many years. Wow. And so he sort of, informally taught apprentices and interns. And I said, well, this is something that we can really build on. And so that's grown in some really significant ways. And so, and we know that, providing skill sets for young people. And I think that's what I see, the arts and cultural organizations being able to do, is use this social capital to provide some greater opportunities, not just for those who want to come in and dance and experience that joy and experience that wellness, but how can we also use this this platform to open up or widen avenues for greater access and education and building skills in some other ways.
I love it. And I'm also struck by the fact that those early years in your career, like, perfectly prepared you for your leadership role there, and specifically one, I didn't know about the construction background.
Yes.
And here you are in the middle of this big project. And so I want to spend some time talking about that, which the Boettcher Foundation is so proud to be a supporter of that project. But to Cleo Parker Robinson's Center for Healing Arts.
Yes.
I know it's a dream 5 years in the making.
Yes.
Tell us about the project and what's the expansion mean for the organization?
Yeah. Okay, so the project it's a 4-level, sort of physically a 4-level building. It has a brand new theater, 4 new studio spaces, and then shared office space on the top level.
Okay.
And so that's kind of physically what it is. But really it is now the home of, the Cleo Parker Robinson Dance Ensemble, our academy. We have a partnership with WellPower where we're offering behavioral health classes that are in collaboration and integrated with the arts classes. And what it has allowed us to do is to do many of the things that we love to do simultaneously. Mm-hmm. Because we're in a building with very few spaces, a lot of times, you can, it's almost like an assembly line. You can only do this one thing at this time.
Right.
But now it's grown. And, for instance, we have over 30 other groups that use the space. And so it's not just a space for Cleo Parker Robinson Dance, but we've really developed it in a way where other organizations that are, looking for rehearsal space or looking for performances or looking to workshop or connect with community in different ways. So it's become this nexus in that way. And so with the new building, it just allows us to kind of fulfill and realize these dreams that we've had for so long, but we've been constricted by space in that way.
Oh, it's so exciting. And tell everybody what the timeline is for that.
So the timeline is and I love it because we broke ground in, say, June of 2024. And at that time, they were saying, our contractor was saying, well, we're scheduled to be completed by November 2025. That date has not changed. And so
that's amazing. Construction projects.
We are progressing.
Good for you.
On schedule.
Well, that's great. Well, you started to talk about this, but of course, the organization's been a cornerstone for 50 years, and you think about the possibility that the new space provides. What are your dreams and visions for future generations?
Oh, wow. I wanted to be a place where everyone can feel this sense of belonging. And even before we launched our campaign, we did a survey, and it was, should we stay in the historic Shorter Church? Should we move? Should we, think about relocating to Aurora? And it just came back to, no, we want to have a presence in downtown Denver, and particularly in this building that has been a sanctuary for generations, because it was built in 1925. My father remembers going and taking Boy Scout classes in the basement. Wow. And so it has such tremendous history. I wanted just to make sure that, one, we kept that building active. And then as part of that is making sure that we're bringing in younger leadership, so this whole process for us even started with this capacity building campaign, because so much of it relied on the family and the family sacrifice, right? So I wanted to build up the organization in such a way where we can have competitive salaries, where we can bring in more leaders that can carry the load. And so I feel like we're getting there. Sort of thinking about long-term sustainability. You can't rely on the family to do it, and this is a community organization. So how can we prop it up so that generations to come can then infuse their own vision in it, but hoping that it remains true to that idea of elevating voices that we often don't hear from, but then also making space for people, for intergenerations, cross-culturally, folks that are coming together and seeing each other in different ways, because there's just not a lot of opportunity for us to do that.
That's awesome. And you have done amazing things, my friend, in the last number of years.
It's a village for sure.
Well, I know that.
Done this work.
And
Yes.
don't we all stand on the shoulders of our parents and mentors and other people and friends that support us every day? But I'm holding the mirror for you relative to your own leadership, and you've done amazing things. And I'm curious what your response would be to this question of what has made you so successful? What are some of those leadership qualities or attributes that you think have made you so successful?
Well, I think one is optimism, and it's sort of, I don't know, crazy optimism around it all, and thinking about how I wake up and just tap into that, because, running a nonprofit, there's a lot of requests to go out. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of denials that come back. And so you kind of have to not take any of that personal and really just think around, okay, well, this door is shut, but it may open later. Right. And so I think that's a big piece of it. I think the other, though, is, and this was one that I saw my parents doing before I came in, and I said, this is just something that we have to always tap into in this collaboration. And I feel like even like moment that we are in the country, it's there could be a tendency to kind of have your head down in your own work and just kind of be siloed and in narrow vision. And, because perhaps that's sometimes what you need to do in order to get the work done. But it's so much better when you are, partnering across sectors or interdisciplinary type of partnerships. There's, coming back to that word joy, you get so much more joy out of it. And so just having a vision for that, I think, has been really a part of the success.
I think that's great. The resiliency and the vision.
Yes.
I hear you saying. And
yes.
And you also talked about the possibility of continuing to bring other people along. And so I wonder what advice would you give for other leaders who maybe want to use the arts as a force for change, like you've done in their communities? What advice would you give them?
That's that's a good one. Really, when I think about the advice that I would give, it kind of goes back to what I think has been the ingredient for success for us, is really that in collaboration, but also the thing that I think for the arts, because the arts are really a tool and you can use that tool in many different ways. I remember going to Jacob's Pillow and participating in this presenters cohort right before the pandemic. And in the arts, we talk about the artists being sort of the leaders of society, because when you think about artists, they're astute, they have to study whatever the material is that they then want to convey on stage or on canvas or whatever that is. And so many artists have their ear to the ground, and then the presenters are there to elevate that. And I said, well, one thing that I think that I would like to see is how do we become greater advocates for those stories that we're telling on stage and not just leaving it there? How do we then use these platforms to continue to, engender the change that we want to see? And so I think that's what I would share. And that's not easy, because you're not just creating the work. You're thinking about community in other ways, right? So you're looking, that means that you're developing relationships with your council members. You're developing relationships with the grocery store owner. You're looking at everybody that's in your proximity and thinking about what is this relationship that we have to each other and what is our commitment to each other. And so that goes well beyond what you might think of as the primary purpose of the artwork. And I think it's really just, the advice is just to be prepared. If you want to be successful, do that in an authentic way, do that in a genuine way, because one, it's going to feed you, so for when you have your premiere, you're going to have a ready audience, but then also you're going to be called on to show up in community in some other ways that might not be related to the art. And so it's sort of thinking about it expansively in that way. But that's the advice I give, is sort of thinking about it beyond just the thing that directly gives you joy. Yeah.
Right. So many other aspects. Well, we have the lightning round questions,
Okay.
so only 4 left.
Yes.
But I'm curious, what's your favorite Colorado hobby, Malik?
My favorite Colorado hobby is just walking outdoors. So we have so many different parks.
Yes.
Whenever I really need to get grounded, I will go to the mountains. I will go to Golden or walk along the river. I'll put my feet in the river. It doesn't matter what time of year it is. That it just helped to change my whole thought process and things. Sometimes that's what I need to do, but that's what I enjoy doing.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
just getting out in nature.
Mm-hmm.
That's in fact the reason why I left New York, because I would see the sun maybe an hour in the day and
Right.
I'd say, wait a minute, this is not the way that the world should look like. So, yeah.
Well, we've got a lot of that beautiful nature here in this state. We're blessed that way. What's your favorite Colorado landmark?
It might not be surprising, but it is the historic Shorter AME Church.
I love it.
It has given me so much life, and so I enjoy being there. Yes.
That's great. That's great. Okay, what action hero do you most identify with?
Oh, that is hard because I don't know many. As I as I hear that, I think about cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
And the Brown Hornet. The Brown Hornet flew around in a hornet, and it was that's the one that kind of sticks out. But he would rush to, I don't know, save the day, and so that's the one that it's like a loose affinity for.
Well, it occurs to me you're probably saving the day in your role occasionally with all the things you have going on over there.
Yes,
That's great.
Yes.
Okay, is there a current thing that you're binging, like a show or a book or a podcast that has your attention?
So the thing that I really binge, because I teach Zumba.
Do you really?
I do.
That's super cool.
And so it's hard to find time to rehearse and get my routines ready for class, because I have to have 16 routines ready, 16, 17 routines ready every time I teach. And I like to mix it up. So I binge watching choreography videos.
I love it. That is the first time we've had someone answer that question. Maybe my life would be better if I did that, because I am tragic at Zumba.
That's where I get, because I'm not a choreographer, so I need to pull and be inspired by different movement and ideas, and so that's what helps.
That's fantastic,
Yes.
Malik. I love it. That's great. Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show and hearing about your journey and what you're up to. I am so excited about the new center. It's going to be
Yes.
amazing.
We have to get you there for a tour.
You bet. Thank you for joining Colorado Leadership Stories, where we hope to inspire the next generation of Colorado community builders, doers, and difference makers. Colorado Leadership Stories is presented by the Boettcher Foundation. The Boettcher Foundation supports Colorado by empowering leaders and communities with tools to tackle challenges and pursue opportunities, building a better state for everyone. With an 85-plus year legacy of giving back, we're committed to amplifying our impact for future generations. That's the spirit of Boettcher.